Welcome back to the program, everybody. Super excited to have my friend Sophie on today. Sophie is a 2.5-year vet, I think, at SageView. Currently is SVP of Growth and Partnerships there. Prior to SageView, she spent a little over 4 years at RWA, time in client services, but by the time she left, she was Assistant Director of Wealth Management. Prior to that, BNY Mellon for 10 years, various roles in client services and analysis. Sophie, welcome to the program. So great to have you here. What did I miss in your background? You've got an awesome background. You're involved on the wealth side. Now you've moved over to the light side, the marketing side, perhaps the harder side. What have we missed?
Well, thanks for having me, Dan. Really excited to be here. So you nailed it. So my background has spanned across wealth and institutional retirement spaces, which has given me just a really broad understanding of the RA industry and a really deep appreciation for not only growth, but for financial planning and the importance of financial health, which we all know is the big buzzword these days. Started off on the wealth side, serving clients, spent time as a retirement consultant, have lots of experience in business development. So today I sit squarely in the middle, on the bridge at the convergence of wealth and retirement. So this has been a wonderful place to grow personally because I understand all the experiences, all the points of view, and can truly tie them together in the right ways for an organization.
Awesome. So great to have you here. So let's just jump right in. The name of the podcast is the Grow Organically podcast. That's the topic. You can't really have many conversations with marketers within this space without talking about organic growth. It's part of what's driving our industry today. So I'd love to hear from you, just sort of high level. What's your take on growth, and what do you think firms should be doing relative to organic growth? What's their approach?
So I think at its core, organic growth is about deepening relationships rather than chasing all of those one-off transactions. It's the kind of growth that builds long-term trust, it builds long-term loyalty, and in our business that truly compounds over time. As far as the most effective ways to drive organic growth, and I think specifically in the RA industry where you have really commonly multiple business lines inside an organization, I think there are 3 key pieces. And I'll frame this a little bit from the SageView point of view and also just generally speaking. But the first is to anchor your growth in education and advice. And I know we'll talk a lot about education today together, but I always like to say be an educator first and a grower second. And in our business, when you take the time to educate participants and educate your plan sponsor clients, and it can be about retirement readiness, investment allocation, navigating major life events, whatever that is, you're not only giving them real value, but you're naturally creating demand for deeper financial planning. And credibility really comes from instruction, and credibility is ultimately what drives conversion. Second, and another critical piece, I think, is just meeting people where they are. I truly believe growth doesn't happen through generic messaging. It happens when you understand and you are able to segment your audience. You can look at life stages, financial goals, specific needs, all of these things, and then tailor your content and your outreach. We always talk about moments that matter, the job changes, preparing for retirement, healthcare decisions, liquidity events at work, whatever it is, all of the above. That's when education resonates the most, and that's when people are most open to engaging further. And third, and this a little bit more generally speaking, but I think firms just need to leverage the trust channels that they have. Think about all the channels: employers, retirement plans, record keepers. These are all built-in access points where people already feel a sense of trust. And so if we can use those opportunities to provide really clear, actionable education, we can build on that foundation of trust in a way that just feels super supportive and it doesn't feel transactional on the other end.
Awesome. And so we've known each other for a couple of years. We've had lots of conversations about the space and about growth. And one of the things that is fairly consistent coming from you is the ethos of trust at SageView. It's sort of core to who you are, and you just talked about it in those 3 points. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about that. What does it mean both internally and how you create because you're responsibilities are with partnerships. So how do you think about trust within the ecosystem amongst partners, with your advisors, staff, and then externally? How do you, because I love that notion of trust and building the relationships, trust being that foundation of that relationship, in how you're attracting and retaining your clients.
Sure. So at SageView, everything starts with trust. As you said, it is the ethos of our firm. And trust is what we strive to build externally with our clients, but it's also how we just operate internally among all of our advisors and all of our employees. So we like to think of ourselves here as an ecosystem, right? We have retirement consulting, we have wealth management, participant education. We also have everything that makes this place run, marketing, operations, investments. But we are all working together with that single purpose of putting our clients' best interests at first. So what is good for them? And I think it's that alignment and that collaboration across the business is what makes us ultimately stronger and what allows us to grow naturally. SageView was founded on the belief that independent advice is the way to truly serve clients. And that principle of trust has been that constant for us over the years as we've grown. And we've grown from a retirement-focused firm into one that integrates wealth management. We integrate financial wellness, participant engagement. But it's not about chasing scale for its own sake. I think it's about scaling that trust. And so our approach to growth reflects that ethos. We grow by creating value first. We educate participants. We guide our employers. We help individuals and their families just make those informed decisions about retirement and whatever is beyond that. So we see growth not just as new clients or new assets, but truly as deepening those relationships, moving from the plan sponsor to the plan participant, from participant to wealth. And sometimes it's honestly just a one-time conversation that leads to a lifelong piece of advice that makes a significant impact on someone's life. And by the way, internally, that same philosophy applies. We invest heavily in building strong partnerships across our teams, across all of our business lines here, so that everyone's working in sync. And what this means in the end is that our clients experience us here at SageView as a cohesive firm rather than all these separate silos. And that's just natural, I think, in a business. And so we've worked hard to pull that together. And it's that sense of integration inside the firm and then outside with our clients is really what fuels SageView's growth and ultimate success.
Would it be fair to say that trust is the foundational element of the relationships, and then strong relationships are the foundational element of growth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well put. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. Well, it's your words. I just kind of moved them around a little bit, but it's simple. I mean, I think about my relationship with my advisors, and it's a trusted relationship, and trusted relationship leads us to growth. So appreciate that as the sort of background on SageView and how important that it's not just a word, it's a feeling. It's sort of, I'm sure it's part of your brand. So it's good to hear that. Good to share that. Want to transition to the next topic. We've talked about this in the past, and we're doing some work with you guys on this, but this notion of cross-company partnerships. Others in the industry might call it a cross-sell, but you very specifically talk about cross-company partnerships as being a key part of your strategy, identifying different products and services that may be applicable to customers in another part of your business. You just talked about some of them. And you told me, you shared with me an interesting story about changing that word, that cross-sell, to cross-company partnerships. Tell us a little bit more about that, why that happened, and really generally, how is cross-company partnerships working within SageView?
Sure. So one of the things we've been very intentional about here at SageView is how we talk about growth, both internally and externally. And so pretty early on, we realized that the phrase cross-sell didn't feel right. And we all know what it means. And you're right, it is an industry term. It's everywhere. But it sounded a little transactional for what we're doing here. Like you're trying to push product or truly sell. And when you're talking about people's financial lives or really any service where trust is central, it's just not the message you want to send. Words are powerful. And so instead we shifted our language. We said, we're not going to use that anymore. And we're going to focus on partnership, and we're going to focus on that connection. And that's where cross-company partnerships came to be. And we've never looked back. So for us, it's not about cross-selling retirement, clients into wealth management, but it's truly about recognizing that so many of the individuals we support in their employer-sponsored retirement plan also have personal financial goals. And those needs just naturally create opportunities for us to extend the relationship. But it's got to be in a way that feels supportive. It needs to feel educational. It does not need to be transactional. And so I think broadly speaking, this concept applies across any business with complementary business lines or lines of service. I think no matter what industry you're in, the principle is the same. I think your best opportunities for growth come from deepening the relationships you already have. This is truly the heart of what organic growth is. And when you understand your clients holistically, you're just in a better position to connect them to any solution that might align with their needs. And so what we found is that when you reframe cross-sell as helping clients just discover that next layer of value, it becomes less about growth for the company and just more about continuity from the client. And so you're just creating that ecosystem where they can get more of what they need in one place, delivered by the people they already trust. That's a win for the client, and very naturally, it's a win for the company too.
Great to hear about the focus on these cross-company partnerships within SageView. Could you go a little deeper on that and share a little bit of the tactical, how it works, either within SageView or how you would envision it working across any firm out there?
So for us, it has to be intentional, as I've talked about everything else here being intentional. We created a steering committee first across our organization, which I would highly recommend to anybody who's looking to kind of pull together different business lines. This was something I did at a prior firm as well and worked really well. And so what this does is kind of connect everyone together. It gets everyone who you need accountable and where you need a voice. And you start to talk about what this looks like for your organization and what it looks like for your clients, the people who are actually down on the ground with your employers and with your participants. And so a big piece of that, kind of digging into that specific cross-company partnerships, is aligning retirement plan teams with wealth advisors and financial coaches. And this we've done regionally, a lot of it, but as we know, our clients are everywhere and participants are everywhere. But that partnership between the institutional teams and the wealth teams is key here, because they start to truly become partners. Nobody's working for anybody else, right? It's everyone's aligned, and they can start to look deep at the clients when we talked about that, and what are their needs, what events are going on inside of their organizations, what do their employees need, and how can we come together to both articulate to them what our services are and then have someone there to help support and educate. And so that's done in a variety of ways. We like to make sure we can meet our employers where they are at in their journeys too. Not everyone is available, just to have us come on site. That is absolutely one way that we can come and educate employees. We do webinars. We will run more than a dozen of them this year. That's a wonderful way to engage at a very flexible time for people. We also have specific programs that are dialed in for specific life events like retirement, or if they're just starting out, or if they're changing employers. All of these things, again, add into that moments that matter and make sure we're meeting people right where they are.
Love that. Love the notion of the partnership across the firm, where you have different business units, but you said it, and I think it's really important to repeat that it as long as that focus is on the end customer, on the end client, and understanding what their needs are, leveraging education through whatever means it's delivered, if it's in person or webinars, really crucial that the client then is seeing the whole of what the firm can bring to them, where it's just not just maybe a retirement plan, or I think about banking as another sector where you could have a deposit account, and that deposit account could be 1% or one part of your financial relationship with a firm, but you might want to have a wealth relationship with that firm as well. So love the notion, steering committee, have that framework put together, ensure that the needs of the individuals are at the center of the conversation. And then education sounds like it's a core layer that sits on top of that, with a focus on delivering what they may need based on their circumstances, based on what's going on with that plan sponsor, if it's a retirement plan.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I want to actually go back. We've talked about education a bunch, and you've said to me in the past that it's at the heart of every campaign that you work on. Would love to understand a little bit more about your approach to growth relative to education.
Sure. So education really is at the center of everything for us. Again, very intentional decision that we made. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think first, the rise of financial wellness has just changed the way people think about money. It's no longer just about investment returns. I think it's about overall well-being. And so people want to understand how these small financial decisions that are part of their employer-sponsored retirement plan fit into that bigger picture of their lives. And that can be managing debt, budgeting, saving, healthcare costs, preparing for all of life's transitions, all of the above. So education just becomes that bridge that connects all the technical financial concepts that we take for granted because we're in the industry to all these everyday decisions that people are making all the time, every second of the day. And that bridge is where trust truly is built. I think second, shifting demographics are just reshaping the conversation. So younger generations coming into the workforces expect transparency, they expect digital access and just a different type of guidance, not just products. And at the same time, you have these older generations who are facing really complex retirement decisions. There's a lot going on in the economy. They want clarity and they want reassurance. They want to sleep at night. And then you have everything in between. So that range of needs means that, again, this one size fits all messaging just doesn't work anymore. And so education allows us to meet people where they are with the resources, with the guidance, and with the available advice that's tailored to them where they are in that journey. And so when I talk about education being the center of growth, it means that growth doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from creating understanding. And when people feel empowered, when people feel informed, and when people feel ultimately supported, they are so much more likely to take that next step. And that can be making an important financial decision or starting or maybe deepening a relationship with a wealth advisor. Education just creates confidence, and confidence is ultimately what drives long-term sustainable growth for your business.
Love it. I want to share an anecdote. It's a proud dad moment, if you will, especially in this industry. My son recently got a brokerage account on his phone, and he's been buying some stocks, and he asked me about a couple of them. And he said, "Well, what do you think about this one?" And I said, "Well, I know a little bit about the company. Like, why are you interested in it?" He goes, "Well, it looks like an interesting investment, and I want to put money into it. And I think if I do that, it's going to force me to learn more about the company, learn more about the sector." And so that was sort of self-education. Here I am, a marketer and in this industry. He figured that one out on his own. But it goes to your point about the importance of the next gen investor and how they're thinking about the market, how they're thinking about what may be a simple financial picture to their life today will get complex. And those that are educated up front can have a better sense of what to expect down the road, better position themselves for what may happen down the road. So anyway, a proud dad moment there as he figured that one out on his own. But a quick question on the education stuff, because like I said, I think it's super, super important. How are you measuring that? It's sort of an intangible. It is foundational, but as a marketer, curious to see how you might be measuring the effectiveness of that education in those relationships that you're building with existing clients and even prospects.
Well, if we think about in the lens of education specifically, and from a marketing perspective, we're looking at a couple things. I think from a technical perspective, We've worked really hard here at SageView the last couple of years to integrate all of our data and our technology. And this just helps everyone who is connected to the end participant and the end client understand where people are and what are those moments. You talked about, your son wanting to buy a stock. He might then click on a piece of content in a newsletter related to that. You want to know when that moment happens, and you want to be able to have someone reach out, and you want to have the right person reach out. And so that's what we've started to build here. So in that case, that would come into our CRM. We would make sure that some sort of notification pops up, that they become part of a campaign or a program that just can help learn more about what it is they are interested in, what it is that they might be interested in the future, what path are they on, what stage of life are they in. That way we can just deliver content that's relevant. He would do no good getting an email from us about, health Medicare costs. Like, that is not on his radar. Yet he may love a piece of thought leadership we have on crypto or, private assets or something that's buzzwords out there in the industry where they don't know where to turn. They don't know what to do. We want to be that source for people. But we want to know, and that comes from data and technology. The other piece of that is kind of that end user. We want to make sure our financial coaches and our wealth advisors can actually reach out, and how much are they reaching out and how often. Touch points and multiple touch points matter because we can watch that journey. Again, we are along that journey. And I think you and I have talked about that being a pretzel shape and not necessarily linear. That's okay. But if we don't know where you are, we can't help you. And so as part of that data and technology journey, also, we can go in and we can help you by watching how many times we've met with you, or making sure that you can really easily click on a meeting link that will take you to our Calendly scheduling tool. And that way, everything is in one place. We know who you are and where you are in your journey when we talk to you. That just makes for a more meaningful conversation. And we want to make sure that's really valuable to you.
It's awesome. I love that because I'm a huge fan of personalization. You talked about, yes, my son does not need to know about Medicare costs. He's in college right now, having a lot of fun. So that's not, any message like that would be lost, and you might take a hit on the trust factor because you're sending a message to somebody that doesn't resonate because it's way off from who they are. So I wanted to ask that question because I think connecting the dots between who I am as an individual or the prospect is as an individual, understanding their engagement with the education, and then, yes, the purchase pretzel as they're going through that journey, understanding what do they consume from a content perspective, how are they educating themselves, what might they need to learn more about next. So I applaud you guys for doing that and having that as a core part of your business. I think it's super important.
Yeah.
All right, so we're towards the end here, and I'm gonna throw my final question at you, Sophie. And I think of it relative to where you are today, the work that you're doing today. But if you knew then what you know now, what would you start doing, stop doing, or maybe change and do a little differently 5 years ago?
Great question. So I'll bring this full circle back to cross-company partnerships, but I would have leaned into cross-company partnerships much earlier, maybe as early as humanly possible. I think it's early on easy to focus on that operational side of growth, especially when you're just building from the ground up. And it took time for me to realize just how powerful it is when you break down silos, you find those shared goals between your business lines. And it's truly that collaboration that not only drives growth, but it just creates those better outcomes for the people that we serve.
Love it. Get there early. So,
That's right.
Sophie, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your insights and all the work that we've been doing together. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Grow Organically podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit Catchlight.ai, where you can access all our podcasts, including show notes and other resources to keep learning. This podcast was produced by Catchlight Insights, LLC. It is for informational and educational purposes only. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer or recommendation of any securities and is not intended to provide tax, legal, or investment advice. The views expressed are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of Catchlight or its affiliates, and are as of the date indicated, based on the information available at that time, and may change based on market or other conditions. Catchlight does not assume any duty to update any of the information. Catchlight and other third parties mentioned in the podcast are independent entities and not affiliated. Catchlight does not endorse any investment advisor or provide advice or recommendations to any prospective or existing client of an investment advisor as to the selection or retention of that investment advisor. This information is not intended for any person or entity in any jurisdiction where the distribution or use of such information would be contrary to local law. Third-party trademarks referenced herein are the property of their respective owners. All others are the property of Catchlight Insights, LLC. Copyright 2025, Catchlight Insights, LLC. All rights reserved.